Hey, what's up, everyone? Just wanted to shoot a video on a mega project I've been working on for about a month now, and actually built this one for a couple of conferences as a tech demo for structured data outputs, which I'm very excited about. I know I've been talking about it throughout the year. So this is SNEK TL, and this is an abstract off of a game called FTL, or Faster Than Light. First off, highly recommend the game, but I thought it'd be the perfect backdrop to show off SDOs and really start to use this as a tool to explain what SDOs are. Now, I'll probably spend the rest of the year writing a couple articles about this specific project, but I wanted to shoot a video and give people an overview of how the project works so that you could go play with it and so that I could stress test the system a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and hit get started here. And we're just going to go ahead and enter in some information. I collect emails. I just want to know who's using the app. It costs me money, so I'm not going to send you a bunch of stuff. Don't worry about it, but I just want to know who's using the app. And then I just want to keep noting that this is not a game. This is a tech demo. And so I just make you sign off that you will not judge me, that may or may not be fun. So let's hit confirm. And what the app is going to do is it's going to go ahead and use AI and structured data outputs to generate a new event. And these events are very similar to what you would experience in Faster Than Light. So if you haven't played Faster Than Light before, you can kind of think of it like Oregon Trail, where you're going from St. Louis to Kansas City and something happens to your party where a wheel on a wagon falls off, or, an ox is missing, you need to go hunting, that sort of thing. So in FTL, same idea. You go from one jump to another jump, and basically something happens at the location that you jump to. So some sort of random event pops up. So I thought it'd be pretty neat to create an app that showcased SDOs and using kind of that FTL like backdrop. So as you can see here, it generated an event, and we don't really have a lot going on. This is the first time that we hit the button. So it basically just kind of plunges us right into a story. So we have a neutrino burst timing challenge where you have some sort of scenario and you need to make some sort of decision. Very, very choose your own adventure. And depending on what you choose, it'll have a different outcome and it'll change your stats. Now I purposely, you can look around the viewport here with your fake telemetry readouts and tactical AO2. All right, but I didn't want to overwhelm people, so I hid part of the UI on the load up here, but we'll go ahead and spin these two out. Now, one of the things that's really interesting about AI right now and structured data outputs, which is relatively new, it's been around in some format for a couple of years, but really in this past year, we're starting to see basically structured data responses come back from LLMs. And what's cool is we don't have to prompt for them anymore. Like you don't have to write in your prompt, please return a JSON. I often call that prompt, pray, and parse, meaning that you would prompt the LLM to say, hey, give me JSON, pray that it works, and then parse it out. Well, with structured data outputs, and I will do a deep dive on this, I swear, I promise, you don't actually have to do any of that. In fact, it's much faster. You can just basically say, hey, I want this specific information to come back. And so it's a really powerful tool. I'm super excited about it. But in the context of SNEK TL, the decisions actually affect the stats in the ship, and I can get loot. Now, you can also, I had it set up before where it could also kill and have crew members join, but I thought that was a little depressing. So at least for a tech demo. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a crew member and they will not die. Once again, this is going to use structured data outputs. So it's generating the crew member. It's giving the system, the LLM, some information via a RAG-like process, retrieval augmentation generation. So it's creating a crew member, and we got our crew member back. We've got our engineer. Okay, and we can release them, but we'll go ahead and roll with him for now. So if I make a decision on what I want to do with the scenario, I go ahead and press confirm. And you can see here that the stats are affected. And what's nice is that structured data outputs are not limited to strings. We can actually do booleans, we can do numerical values, and then we can also do more complex. But the argument I always make is that most data boils down to the basic three. So either string, number, or boolean. That's a whole other conversation. Anyways, so we have our stat change here. We lost some fuel, we lost some hull, and actually ties it back to the story as well too. So all of this is tethered together. Now what's cool is I make a new jump. So if I go ahead and pick my star map here, select a new place to jump, hit confirm jump, it'll actually go ahead and generate a new scenario. Now what's cool about this system is that it basically is set up to take in and consider my crew members, where I was before, what decision I made before, and basically all that plays a factor in the system deciding what the next event and the next story is going to be. And as a result, what kind of outcomes I can have. So That's what SDOs are, is that if you can think of it as reg as information coming into the LLM as structured information, you can think of SDO as structured data leaving the LLM, which can be then hooked into games, apps, a number of different things. And when I spoke at these conferences, I built a few different apps, and this just happens to be the game-like one. Okay, so as you're playing with this, there's a couple things you can do. First off, you're welcome to use it, SNEKTL.com, add crew members. The other thing you can do is there is sound, so you can play some music if you wanted to. I'll let you just do that. There's an about section here, so you can go check out Faster and Light. There's the concept I used from CodePen for the UI, and then just a thank you to the conferences I spoke at. But over here in settings, there's some additional stuff you can do. So I use local storage. I offloaded all the storage over to you. You can go ahead and clear your history and start from scratch if you want, or reset your stats. Don't worry, you can't lose this. Once again, it's not a game. My kid keeps playing it and it's like, Dad, can you add combat? I'm like, no, it's a tech demo. Anyways. But there are some other things you can do too. If you want to speed up the process of like jump to jump, you can turn off history and crew for consideration. It'll actually speed up the generation a little bit. The other thing you can do too is you can click on show outcomes. And so here what that does is over here, it shows you what your selection will actually give you. Once again, not a game, so you can actually just see what the outcomes are. And these are predefined once it comes back from the LLM. So here we'll actually confirm the option that gives us some loot. So we got some loot here. And then you can go ahead and remove your components, remove your team as you choose. And then there's things like music and sound effects. You can tweak these values. I'm not dogmatic about what these should be. You can also change the color, so you can change the color of the experience. The other thing that you can do too is you can actually flip on narration. And I'd ask that you don't go nuts on this, but just try one or two just to get a feel for it. But what this will do is that as it's generating, it'll actually generate a narration for the experience as well. So we'll go ahead and jump, and I'll show what that looks like. We'll speed this up here. All right, it came back, and now we have a play button because we generated a narration. So if you click play.
As your ship navigates the planetary ring gap, sensors pick up unusual readings.
So you can check that out if you want. All this is out of my personal account though, so just don't go ham, but feel free to check it out. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much the overview of the app. The other thing that you should know is that there are a couple things controlling the overall experience. So not only did I build the app itself, but I also built a manager for the app. So actually over here in a different application that's running on Heroku, no, you can't get into it, you have to log into it. But here I can control things, and I talk about in these conference talks and in the future posts and videos I'm going to put out, I'll talk about human in the loop and giving designers control, even though we want to use things like an LLM to help us craft our games and experiences. So I'll talk about this, but the app itself, the front end that you're using goes ahead and talks to a back end, and it uses essentially some worker threads to communicate with this SNEK TL manager, which then has a database. And so things like the loot and some of the encounters are designed and stored into this database and given to the experience that you have on your computer. Of course, then I communicate with the OpenAI API. And then it's not really the focus, but I do use Nano Banana in the Gemini API for all of the images. Just want to throw that out there as well too. So I think what I'll do is, like I said, I want to record a pretty heavy set of videos and kind of release them on aftercamp.io and talk about things, SDO for sure. Structured data outputs will probably be a few posts. There's a lot of structured data outputs going on in here. It's really cool. It's the reason why I drove out to these conferences. It's the reason why I put this application together. Structured data outputs are awesome. But then I talk about some other things to consider too when you're building these types of apps. So things like polling, and that's needed because you can't just make a standard REST API call from the front end to the back end. If the call itself takes longer than 30 seconds. And so there's some back-end architectural things that might not be obvious to people who are, mid-career, let's say, and even some seniors. So I'll talk about polling as a method. I will talk about image gen, of course. We'll talk about the other side of STO, which is RAG, so retrieval augmentation generation, and how the app is handling that. We'll talk about the human in the loop, and so I'll talk about the manager itself and why we needed it and why, how it's actually all working. We'll definitely talk a lot about AI FinOps. And so I built myself a dashboard here to go ahead and kill the experience if it's going to start costing me too much. But I also have an idea of how often it's being used, how many crew are created. So I give myself some stats and some things to check out as people hop on and play with it. So we'll talk about human in the loop. AI FinOps, and then just the overall architecture as well too. It's not like a super complicated system, but more complicated than I think than a lot of folks have gone after in their personal projects. And so I think this might be a good opportunity to talk about how this particular app is set up the way it is, how it's hosted, how it's working. So we'll talk about architecture in a future set of videos as well too. But yeah, go check it out, snektl.com. Give me any feedback, shoot me a message. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Once again, not a game, more unstructured data outputs, which means that AI is controlling elements of the quote unquote game. And I'd be curious to see how you might use this in future projects. All right, more SDO videos to come. Talk to you. I'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.